Welcome, everybody. This is Tian Kriek, and thank you for joining me in today's Tian Kriek Trading Room session. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a nice long weekend and enjoyed the 4th of July celebrations. Just let me know if you can hear my voice and see the welcome screen. Okay. Excellent. Who do we have here? We have Denise, Elena. I see we have Jewel, we have Tom. Okay. Before I get started, I need to make mention that I'm not a financial advisor, and that means I can teach you my strategy. I can point out to you where I personally would want to buy and sell, but the actual trading decision you're still going to have to make yourself. All right, so let's see what the markets have been up to. Let's go and open up the macro data portion of my website and economic calendar. Let's see, nothing from the United States today. And tomorrow, I also don't see. Oh, we have consumer inflation expectations coming out tomorrow from the United States. And let's see what the markets have been doing. The dollar index is up with 0.3%. Same with the Dow Jones, S&P 500, exactly the same. We did see a gap up on Sunday night. And then the Nasdaq is down with 0.23%. I see that there's a bit of volatility in the markets. I think it's just coming back to close the gap that we experienced last night. But it looks like it's all systems go. If you want to use Bitcoin as a benchmark, I've been talking about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has broken that crucial 108,000 level. So it's likely going to continue much higher to 108. So or 181,000. But that means all risky assets are going to rally, especially now that we've seen the Nasdaq, the S&P, all of them are making new highs. That would bode well for selling the yen because of the carry trade. I also see that the dollar is on the mend, so maybe, just maybe, there's light at the end of the tunnel for us trading the US dollar in a bullish capacity. Let's see which currencies are the strongest and the weakest so far for the day. Okay. Where did the markets open? Around about here. There we go. Right. So the strongest for the day is the US dollar. The weakest is the yen. Look at the yen coming down. Nice. It looks like the New Zealand dollar is off its lows. The Swiss franc is stable but unchanged. The pound is the second strongest, followed by the Canadian dollar and then by the euro. Interesting to see that the yen is the weakest for the day because I did leave a trade open over the weekend. The Aussie yen, I remained deployed in the Aussie yen. You can see there that the market is making a strong comeback towards my entry price at 95.22. Nice. Okay, let's go and open up the probability sheet here. Oh, 1 second. I don't have it open. Let's see if I can open it up here. Oh, there we go. Right, so we only have the Aussie yen that was tradable on Thursday, actually, because Friday was a holiday. I didn't host my trading room, but that's it. I think let's start with updating the currency indexes. Let's start with the dollar index. And as usual, I'm going to open up the daily chart to see what's the direction of highest probability. Okay. And it looks like the dollar did bounce here against the secondary trend support line. Let me just open up a weekly chart so you can see this trend in all its glory. There we go. So this is the dollar index. We've broken a big falling wedge to the upside, coming from, I mean, the late 70s, basically. And we have a bullish primary trend, a bullish secondary trend, and now the market is at crucial support. And that crucial support is the secondary trend. If that one is broken, then we're likely going to see the US dollar continue falling. But there's an interesting development here. The current trend has taken on the form of a falling wedge. And if the market is going to bounce against the secondary trend support line here and then actually moves back up inside the boundary of this wedge, then we're going to end up with a wolf wave. Remember, a wolf wave is where we have a false breakout to the downside. So that's going to be very interesting to see if the market will bounce here or if there will be a substantial bounce against this secondary trend support line over here. Okay. Jules says tariffs on potential trade deals on the table this week. That absolutely. I believe Donald Trump also postponed it to the deadlines to early August. So it's all good news. It's all good news, and that's why you're seeing risky assets rallying. But if there is a massive influx into the United States from abroad, people also want to invest in the United States, then then the dollar is going to catch a bit, unless we see the Fed cut rates or take a more dovish stance. But anyway, at this point, I am calling the US dollar neutral, because now we're stuck between support, which is that secondary trend support line, and also the 45 period exponential moving average. That's why I put a sideways arrow here. Let's see what it is going to do. I mean, if it moves above the 45, then we're likely going to see this one move higher. Momentum at this point is neutral, volume is neutral, and you can see that the RSI actually moved from the oversold position and crossed its own moving average to the upside. So that is a bullish signal. There's nothing really I can change here. Okay, dollar index is a pass so far. Australian dollar. Let's see what we have from this one. Still neutral. It looks like it wants to break the 45 period exponential moving average again. Let's see if it will bounce here. In all fairness, today's daily candlestick did open up above it, so I'll give the bulls the benefit of the doubt. Momentum is still bullish, volume is neutral, but I see that the RSI has turned bearish. All right, we can update that. And let's see what we have on the 1 hour. The Australian dollar has also been a non-entity, basically. Just hasn't been moving, just been consolidating. There we go. There's a death cross on the 1 hour chart. Look at that. That's not boding well for the Aussie. If the Aussie is going to weaken and the pound is strengthening, then that will open up the door for a buy on the pound Aussie at least. All right. So the 1 hour chart in the Aussie is just not aligned. Canadian dollar. Still bullish. We actually did see a big drop to the downside earlier in the day. Look at that candlestick wick. But the market did open up above that 45 period exponential moving average, as well as above the down current trend resistance. So that is bullish. All of this has been preceded by an odd looking bullish ground, but a bullish ground nevertheless. So I'll maintain the bullish probability here. Momentum is neutral, volume is neutral, but the RSI is bullish on this one. It was a yes on Thursday. I said the probability is bullish as price moved above the down current trend resistance. Yes. And the 1 hour was aligned. And there we go. Golden cross. Up AB boundary. Still no 382 retracement. But considering that the market's now moved above the 127, I can expect it to move to the 2.618. It's been a bit of volatility here, but it's also broken a counter trend line. All right. Still bullish on the Canadian dollar. If the yen is weak and the Canadian dollar is strengthening, then I should be looking for a buy on the Canadian yen. Swiss franc. It looks like the market is still reacting bearish against this primary trend resistance line, this thick red line. Let me just make it a solid line as well. There we go. And then I'm going to open up a higher time frame so you can see where it comes from. There. This is the primary trend on the Swiss franc index. The angle of this trend actually does look adequate and intact, because if you have a look at the intermediate line, it does look like the market did react against that intermediate line, which leads me to believe that I have drawn the channel line, the top line, at the right spot. So now we need to wait and see if the market will now bounce against that and then continue bearish. It doesn't look like last week the market succeeded in moving above that, because it did kind of sag down and left us with a big candlestick wick to the upside. So hopefully this week we'll see some Swiss franc weakness. It will become evident once the market has moved below the 45 period exponential moving average. So I don't want to get too happy just yet. I think we need to wait for the market to move below that 45. At this point, I'll just call it neutral, because we're stuck between that resistance, which is the trend line or the channel line, as well as the support here, which is the 45 period exponential moving average. Also, something worth noting is that the RSI has been overbought, and it is coming down, and it looks like it may be crossing its own moving average. If that happens, then that could be a sell signal on the Swiss franc. So they're still at the light of the tunnel for those of us hoping for Swiss franc weakness. That light at the end of the tunnel hasn't been switched off. Okay, Swiss franc. Next one is the euro. What's the euro doing? Euro is just strengthening. All right. If we look at the euro from a longer term perspective, it has been consolidating since this chart began in 2011. It since then broke that consolidation range to the upside. The market came back and tested the broken resistance, which was future support, which also happened to be the 618 retracement of the up fib. And now it's heading up to the D extension. So that probability is bullish. However, in similar fashion to what we are witnessing on the Swiss franc, um, it is crossing its own moving average and coming from an overbought condition, suggesting that we may be heading for a bit of a retracement, which is actually normal because if the US dollar is going to strengthen and bounce against its secondary trend support line, then the euro is likely going to come down. And that would be a strong argument for a sell on the euro US dollar, for instance. Okay, but it will be evident or glaringly obvious once the market has moved below the 45 period exponential moving average. Okay, at this point, I'll just keep the RSI overboard. Let's see what we have on the 1 hour chart, because on Thursday, it looked like the 1 hour was aligned. Still aligned. We're still in a golden cross situation here. No 382. The market moved above the 127. So I can't really change anything here unless there's a death cross. So it looks like there's still some water that needs to flow under the bridge here before we can change tact on the euro. Next one is the pound. And the pound, there's the pound index. Still bullish. Look at that. It remains above the 45 period exponential moving average. The bullish current trend also remains intact. Momentum is neutral, though. Volume slightly bearish, with the RSI also neutral. So we may be entering a period of consolidation, but nevertheless, the probability itself is still bullish. Okay, and remember, interest rates in what is it? Trading economics. Trading economics. Interest rates in the UK is still the highest, basically. If you compare that to the G8, here we look at the UK. Interest rates 4.25. Compare that to the United States, 4.5. Okay, so the US is still higher, but UK interest rates are still pretty much elevated. And as long as that remains high, we'll see the pound continue to strengthen. If you compare that to the Eurozone, for instance, the Eurozone interest rate's 2.15, much lower. So it makes sense to buy pounds because you'll get a higher return as opposed to, for instance, buying the Swiss franc. You're not going to earn anything. Okay, so that's one of the macro reasons why the pound is still strengthening and still in a bullish probability. Let me just see what we have on the 1 hour. Oh, a death cross. Look at that. All right. Can't draw an up fib because we got a death cross in the 1 hour. So this death cross means the pound is likely just going to consolidate. Once we get a golden cross on the 1 hour chart, then there's potential. There's more upside potential, but due to the fact that there's a death cross in the 1 hour chart, it signals more consolidation. All right, don't expect fireworks from the pound. Next one is the New Zealand dollar. And just like the Aussie, this one has now moved below its 45 period exponential moving average. It hasn't closed below it. So I can't call this probability bearish. It's still bullish because the daily candlestick opened up above the 45 period exponential moving average. And also we have a triangle. There's a support line of the triangle that was broken to the downside, and then the market moved right back up above it. And now that broken triangle support, which was resistance, which is now support again, the market just tested that today. So maybe we'll get a lift off from here. Who knows? Anyway, just like the Aussie, I'll give the bulls the benefit of the doubt. Interesting observation. The RSI has now turned bearish. It's crossed its own moving average and moved below the median line. Let's see what we have on the 1 hour. Also a death cross here. Okay. Nothing to see on the NZD. So it's still only the Canadian dollar and the euro that's aligned here that we can expect to trend higher. With the US dollar potentially bouncing at support and taking the Canadian dollar with it, I'm very excited about the Canadian dollar, especially versus the Swiss franc and versus the yen. Anyway, we'll get that later during our session today. Last one is the Japanese yen index, and I am happy to report the yen index itself is the weakest index for the day. And we have moved below the 45 period exponential moving average. It was preceded by a bearish head and shoulders pattern. That head and shoulders has now been broken again. And I see that the market has broken this rising wedge to the downside as well. There is a down secondary trend, so it's likely going to continue bearish. And then also, if I open up a larger chart here, you can see we do have a down primary trend, and the market never really succeeded in breaking that primary trend intermediate line over here. Just kept on bouncing against it in the past, and it's now been pushed lower. So I think we're going to head down on the yen. I feel very comfortable shorting the yen basket at this point. Very excited about that. Okay, so that's the yen. I'll give the bears the benefit of the doubt. Momentum neutral, volume neutral, but the RSI is overwhelmingly bearish. Look at that, below its median line, the 50 line, and it's also below its own moving average. So that's bearish. Last week, the 1 hour chart wasn't aligned. Let's see what we have today. Oh, nice, a death cross. Okay, so we have a death cross on the 1 hour. So that means I can draw a down Fibonacci AB boundary. And it looks like we don't have a 382, which means the market needs to move below the 127 extension for me to assume that it will continue lower and extend to the 2.618, which is the D extension. And that is the case. So we definitely have alignment on the yen here. Expect this one to continue bearish. Nice. I like what I'm seeing here. Okay, so let's make a mental note to spend a lot of time today on the yens, because selling the yen doesn't look like a bad idea. Okay, so that is bearish. I'll put a down arrow here. Okay, so what's important here to notice? We have the yen that's weakening. We have the Canadian dollar that's strengthening, and the euro that's also aligned. So it's obvious. We need to sell the yen versus the Canadian dollar and sell the yen versus the euro. So meaning go long Canadian yen, go long euro yen. I am long currently on the Aussie yen, so let me just go through all the currency pairs that are aligned. And for that purpose, I'm just going to open up my dashboard indicator. Let's just go through everything that looks like it might be aligned. Aussie CAD here is bullish, but we have a death cross on the 1 hour. That's not going to work. Aussie Swiss is still bearish. I'd like to see a bullish probability on the Aussie Swiss, because remember, interest rates in Switzerland are 0, and they're much higher in Australia. So I'd like to buy the Aussie Swiss. Therefore, we need to wait for a bullish probability. The Aussie yen is bullish, and we have a golden cross. So that's the first one that looks like it's aligned. So let's go open up the Australian dollar. There we go. Okay, that's bullish. We have a bullish head and shoulders pattern. Momentum is slightly bullish. Volume is neutral. But look at that. The RSI, it's crossed its own moving average. So that is bullish. You see, I like referring to my dashboard indicator. It's just a quick high-level overview of what could be aligned. If you want to go and download this indicator, you don't need a license for it. So you can just go to my website, tiankriek.com. Let me just go through the process here. tiankriek.com. There we go. And then click on access the directional insight spreadsheet. And at the bottom of that, you'll get my insight dashboard as a MetaTrader 4 indicator. Okay. So that's bullish, the Aussie yen. And let's see what we have on the 1 hour chart. Okay, still in a golden cross situation. Look at that. There, we had a golden cross between the 200 and the 50 period simple moving averages. Therefore, I've drawn an up AB boundary. And the market did retrace to the 618. So it's still making its way to the Fibonacci 1.618. That's bullish. We got upside potential here for more than 80 pips. So I'll remain deployed in a bullish capacity on the Aussie yen. I'll hold on to my buy trade here. My Risk Guardian EA is deployed in a bullish capacity. And remember, it will take profit at every round number. Also, remember the latest version that we should be using is version 3.13. That is the one that is uploaded on the website as well. Okay, so that's the Aussie yen. I will remain deployed on this one. Let me go and update that in my dashboard here. Just update the date. There we go. Oh, one more thing. Just for interest sake, see what we have from my FX book sentiment. I like to look at retail sentiment and then take the contrarian approach. Oh, there's the Aussie yen. 47.53. So it's inconclusive, it's neutral, and that's why the market is, basically consolidating but drifting higher. All right, so that's the Aussie yen. I'll remain deployed on that. Next one is the Aussie NZD. That's bullish, and we have a golden cross. But if you look at most brokers, you're going to pay either way if you're buying or selling, trading the Aussie NZD. You're likely going to get stuck because it consolidates most of the time, and you're just going to see the broker take money out of your account to pay for overnight interest. So it's not worth trading that. Aussie US dollar is bullish, but we have a death cross because of the US dollar strengthening. We're just not there yet. I need to see a bearish probability if I want to trade dollar strength. Canadian Swiss is still not aligned. You can see it's bearish. It needs to be bullish. I want to buy the Canadian Swiss. I'm patiently waiting for that opportunity. Canadian yen is bullish and we have a golden cross. Okay, so now I can have a look at that one. What's exciting about the Canadian yen is because when I analyzed the currency indexes, we saw that the Canadian dollar index is aligned, it's bullish, and the yen is bearish. Also, from a macro perspective, the Canadian dollar, or in Canada, we have interest rates at 2.75, and in Japan at 0.5. So if you borrow money in Japan and you go and buy the Canadian dollar and you just hold that, you are going to earn that interest rate differential. So I should be looking for a buy. So I'm very happy to see that the technical climate is also bullish. And there we go. Look at that. So what do we have here? We have a falling wedge that was broken to the upside. We also have a bullish crown or a gold a head and shoulders pattern. And then if I look at the 45 period exponential moving average, we're also above that one. So that's bullish. Indicator wise, it's still slow. You know, momentum is neutral. Look at that. The dot plot's above the median line. The histogram's below the median line. Volume is neutral, but the RSI is starting to move up. You know, the RSI is like the early warning signal. RSI is likely is always the first one to react. So that is bullish and that is exciting. All right, so let's go and update the Canadian yen. Momentum neutral, volume neutral, but the RSI is bullish. Let's update sentiment on the Canadian yen. There we go, 63.37. So you can see only 37% of retail traders are long. Most retail traders lose money. So we need to take the contrarian approach. So the lesser the number, the better. Okay. So I'll still call it neutral because anything below 30 would be bullish on the Canadian yen sentiment. And let's see what we have on the 1 hour. Nice golden cross. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, so now because we have a golden cross, I can draw an up Fibonacci AB boundary, and I start my A at the lowest low that the market made, or the lowest fractal low that we can see before the golden cross occurred, and then I draw my Fibonacci tool all the way up to the first fractal high that occurred after the golden cross, not the high, the first fractal high. So there we have the fractal high, and I can see that we don't have a 382. And because we don't have a 382, I have to wait for the market to move above the 127 extension if I want to buy it. And it looks like we've moved above that. Look at that. The current 1 hour candlestick has moved above that 127. So that's great. So that means I can move, I can assume that the market will move all the way up to the 2.618. Okay, remember, if you don't have a 382 and the market moved above the 127, we're likely going to go all the way up to the 2.618. So that's bullish, and we have alignment. All right, so I'm going to call this one a yes. There we go. And that means I can deploy the Canadian yen. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my MetaTrader 4 terminal, open up the Canadian yen chart, make sure it's a 5-minute chart. I already have my EA deployed here, so it's all systems go. I can trade one mini lot for every $10,000 I have in my trading account. I'm just writing it off. So I'll trade with 2 mini lots, and there's nothing else I need to change here. Everything's fine. I've got my license key in here. Everything's perfect. Right. Nice one. Okay, so the Canadian yen is now officially deployed. Let's hope we can make some money with that one. Swiss yen is going to be a pass. Interest rates in Switzerland and Japan are very, very close to each other, and you can go and have a look at your broker. You're likely going to pay interest rates either way, just like the Aussie NZD. It's just not worth trading it. Next one is going to be Euro Aussie. The Aussie looks like it's weakening. The Euro is still strong. But if we compare interest rates between Europe and Australia, I should be selling the Euro versus the Aussie, actually. So I need to be patiently waiting for a bearish probability. And it looks like there's been some bearish price patterns that have been unfolding. Look at this bearish head and shoulders pattern. I see that the market is reacting here against the trend line. Look at that. Let me see, what line is that? Oh, that's an intermediate line of the primary trend. Look at that. Intermediate line of the primary trend is reacting bearish against that. So hopefully that's now the right tip of this bearish crown. Obviously, the Australian dollar need to start to strengthen to push this one below the 45. Either way, I need to wait for a bearish probability. So that's going to be a pass. What I can do is, because the market is now converging with that primary trend intermediate line, I can call this neutral and update that on my chart here, or my sheet, excuse me. I did say wait for a bearish probability. Price is stuck between the primary trend intermediate line and the 45 period exponential moving average. All right. Okay, remember, if you want access to this sheet, again, go to my website, click on access the directional insight spreadsheet, and it's embedded here on the page. In the upper right hand corner, if you just scroll a bit, in the upper right hand corner, you'll get my TradingView link to get all the indicators that I use in TradingView. All right, back to MetaTrader 4. So that's Euro Aussie. EuroCAD, same thing. Interest rates in Canada are slightly higher than what they are in Europe. I need to be selling the EuroCAD, so that's not going to work. Euro Swiss is still bearish. I'm going to buy the Euro Swiss because of the lower interest rates in Switzerland. So we need to wait for a bullish probability. The Euro Pound, though, is overbought. And they may be light at the end of the tunnel here for a sell, because I need to sell the Euro versus the Pound. But it needs to move below the 45 period exponential moving average. And this market is very far away from that. Also, the RSI is moving from an overbought condition back below its own moving average. So we may be seeing the market come down, but it needs to move below that 45. So that's going to be a pass for now. Euro yen is overbought, but we do have a golden cross. Oh wow, look at that. That is a surge to the upside, and that's obviously because of the yen weakening. I called this one neutral because if we have a look at the secondary trend over here, I'm just going to highlight this one because there's so much noise on this chart. This is the secondary trend, okay, the blue trend. And if you look at the intermediate line of that secondary trend, the market is now converging with that. There, look at that. That green candlestick of the day is converging with that. So I think we need to wait for a daily candlestick to move above that, or at least close above it, before I can buy it or continue buying it. The RSI is still way overbought, and even if I deploy it, it's not going to trade. My EA won't trade because I have the RSI on the daily chart built in here. So if it's overbought, it won't trade. I'm not going to deploy it. I'm not going to worry about it today. I did call it neutral. I did say last week, wait for price to move above the secondary trend intermediate line. I'm also going to add here that the RSI is overbought. Okay. Right, so that's a pass. Next one, Euro NZD. I need to be selling the Euro NZD. It is overbought. The probability needs to be bearish, so that's not the case yet. Euro US dollar is also overbought. And that's because of the US dollar strengthening, but the probability hasn't changed yet. Look, if I was going to trade the Euro US dollar, then I'd be selling it because interest rates are much lower in the Eurozone opposed to the United States. But it needs to move below that 45 period exponential moving average. The only thing I can see here is that the market has bounced out against the daily fib 127. So it can come back to the 382 before we head up. So this will happen if we see the US dollar strengthen. And we know that the US dollar is at support. So I won't be surprised. Also, from a technical perspective, we have broken this down secondary trend to the upside. but the market still needs to come back and test the backside of that secondary trend before we head up, the broken secondary trend. And guess where that is? That is the projected right tip of this bullish crown. Okay, so what may happen here is that the market can still come back and give us the right tip of the crown before we continue up. Okay, that is entirely possible. We may be heading for some US dollar strength um, to let this market come back to the backside and give us the backside of the broken trend, secondary trend, and also to come and give us the right tip of that crown. That is going to be interesting to follow. And if the market moves below the 45, I'll definitely deploy my EA in a bearish capacity. Jewel is asking if there's a death cross on the 1 hour. Let's go and see. Euro US dollar. Not yet. Look at that. Not yet. We're still in the golden cross situation. It is making lower highs though. And as the market continues bearish, we'll see a death cross. That's likely. For interest sake, let's see what we have from sentiment, liquidity provider sentiment. On sentiment, liquidity providers, and search for the Euro US dollar. There we go. Liquidity provider 67% long, so still bullish. Hi there, Ricardo. Ricardo, thanks for joining. What you have missed is that I maintain my bullish deployment on the Aussie yen, and I have deployed the Canadian yen in a bullish capacity. And also, I like the fact that the yen pairs are aligned, because if we have a look at the yen index, it is bearish and it's confirmed bearish, and it's likely going to continue to fall. So shorting the yen looks like that is the way to go on this Monday. All right. So that was the Euro US dollar. Then we have the pound Aussie, that's bullish, but we have a death cross in the 1 hour. That's not going to work. Pound Canadian, same thing. I'd like to buy the pound CAD because of the big interest rate differential, but we have a death cross in the 1 hour. Pound Swiss is bearish. That's not going to work. I need to see the Swiss franc weaken. I need to see a bullish probability on the pound Swiss. The pound yen is bullish, but we have a death cross on the 1 hour. Why is that? I was hoping to buy the pound Swiss today. Oof, look at that big bullish candlestick here. Gosh, look at that. Lovely. Oh, that's bullish. We've broken out of this triangle, broken the neckline of this this head and shoulders or a crown. Everything's bullish here. Even the RSI is giving us a bullish signal. It's crossing its own moving average. So why is the 1 hour not aligned? I don't understand that. Oh, I see now. It has made a new high, but it hasn't given us that golden cross yet. I really thought that we would have seen that by now. Look at this. This is a lovely bullish ground formation here. Left tip, center tip. Markets come back for the right tip before we continue up. Okay, well, I guess I'll wait till tomorrow before I can deploy the pound yen. We got to be patient and stick to the rules here. Next one is the pound NZD. That's bullish, but we have a death cross. Pound US dollar is still bullish. I guess I've got to sell the pound US dollar. Need to wait for a sell on that because of the US dollar strengthening. The NZD CAD is bullish, but I need to see a golden cross on that. Now, at this point, we've got a death cross on the 1 hour, so that won't work. NZD Swiss is not going to work for me because I need to see a bullish probability. All the Swiss pairs I need to be buying. Okay, this bearish probability on the Swiss isn't going to work for me, because if I get stuck, I'm going to pay overnight interest, and that's exactly what I want to avoid. This needs to turn bullish, so we need to be patient for that. NZD yen is bullish, and we have a golden cross. That's one that we can have a look at. Okay, falling wedge broken to the upside, bullish head and shoulders. We're above the 45. The market's consolidating here. So, you know, the New Zealand dollar as an index is consolidating. And we actually have a bearish candlestick for today. But so the New Zealand dollar is weakening and the yen is weakening, and that's why this market is basically consolidating. But if we do see the New Zealand dollar strengthen, we're going to pop out of this consolidation range. So the bullish probability is not a concern, is great. The fact that we're consolidating is not a concern for me, because if I do get stuck, I'll just get paid overnight interest. What a pleasure. Momentum is neutral. Volume is neutral. You can see they be below the dead zone line. RSI is also neutral, but it looks like it wants to cross its own moving average. It's all just confirming the consolidation here. Okay, let's drag that across. Sentiment on the NZD yen. 3% long. Look at that. That's bullish sentiment on the NZD yen. Nice one. Okay. Now I'm excited. 1 hour chart. Big rebound we got here. There is a golden cross. You can see that. And the lowest low that the market made before we got that golden cross is that low, that fractal low, and that's the first fractal high. But now you can see that the A was breached. And that means we could see a reversal on the NZD yen. It's too risky. It shouldn't have retraced that deep, really. It shouldn't have retraced that deep. I don't understand why it did that, why it retraced so deep after the big upsurge we had. Because now it's coming back again, but it's not skewing the plotting of my fibs. So what needs to happen now is we need to see a death cross and then a golden cross before I can draw an up fib. All right, that's a pass on the NZD yen. And then the rest is just the dollar basket. As you all know, the dollar is potentially bouncing at support, which means the dollar CAD could be heading up. There we go. We could be seeing a bullish dollar CAD, but it needs to move above the 45 period exponential moving average. Same thing with the dollar Swiss. Same thing with the dollar yen. If we see the market close above that 45 there, and the dollar index is bullish, then I wouldn't mind buying the dollar yen. Okay, because I'm after that overnight swap. Okay, so that's it. We only have two currency pairs that are tradable. It's the Aussie yen and the Canadian yen. I was hoping that the NZD yen would be tradable, but unfortunately that one's a little bit warped on the 1 hour. But two currency pairs that are deployable is better than nothing. Let's move over to updating the commodities and equities. I also want to have a look at Bitcoin. So let's have a look at gold. You know that if the dollar strengthens, we're going to see gold likely come down. It has been testing the 45 period exponential moving average. There is a death or a bearish crown over here. So we may see gold retrace a bit as the US dollar strengthens, but this bullish probability is hanging on a thread. Momentum neutral, volume neutral, but the RSI is giving us a bearish signal already, because look at that, it's below its own moving average and below the median line. Interesting. Anyway, I wouldn't be buying gold at this point, so that probability is still bullish, and be neutral on the other stuff. That's going to be a pass. Just going to say dollar index strength here in my note, strength. Will likely cause a retracement. Gold versus the US dollar. All right. Oil, West Texas Intermediate. Let's quickly have a look at this one. Bullish. We're above the 45. Hanging on a thread though. But there's a golden cross on the RSI. The RSI has crossed its own moving average. So that's bullish. Let's see what we have on the weekly. Okay, so this down secondary trend is still intact. It looks like the market has broken the primary trend to the downside, but you know, this primary trend could be drawn anyway. I mean, this angle may not be correct, and we haven't really seen a new high. Only once there's a higher high will I know how to draw this primary trend. So that's open for debate. I'm not too worried about it. So back to the daily chart. We're still below the secondary trend resistance, but we're above the 45. So I guess that's fine. Oh, and then also don't forget about this bullish pattern we have here. A bullish ground. We just got the right up. We could be seeing gold move, excuse me, oil move higher. If this crown prevails, the bullish crown, we draw the fib of the actual crown. That is almost a 618. So it can go up to the 1.618 at $91 a barrel. Let's see if that will be the case. But the probability is most certainly bullish. If I had to make a decision on oil, I'd be buying it. So bullish probability, and the RSI is bullish. I could update that. There we go. And then the next one is the 1 hour. Well, oh, there is a golden cross on the 1 hour. This one. Okay, let's draw the up fib. 5-0 retracement. And that means we're at least heading in the short term to the 1.618, which is the D. And that is going to be at 69.50 roundabout. Excuse me, 69. Oh, 69.10. Call it $69 a barrel. We currently at 67. So next resistance is 69. So that's bullish. If you're looking for direction on oil, it's bullish. And timing for a buy, the time is now. That's a yes. The 1 hour is aligned. Probability. And the 1 hour is signaling. Oops, daisy. Signaling. Can't spell today. Signaling more upside to $69 a barrel. Okay. Then we get to the equity indexes. The Dow Jones. Last week, all of them were bullish. It's just the S&P that hit Fibonacci de-extension. But let's see what we have from the Dow today. Right, that's bullish. We're above the 45 period exponential moving average. Bullish head and shoulders pattern suggesting we will move much higher, all the way up to this large Fibonacci de-extension, 48,300 on the Dow. So that's bullish. Momentum is bullish. Volume is bullish. The RSI is overbought, but an overbought RSI in a bullish probability actually means nothing until we hit meaningful resistance, which is likely going to be that Fibonacci de-extension, because you can see here that we're still in an uptrend. The primary trend is bullish. The secondary trend is bullish. And that's what's important. The current trend, the bullish current trend was broken, but the market is so close to making a new high. If it makes a new high, I'll be forced to adjust the current trend. Then the current trend is going to look like this. There. There we go. It will look like that. Let me make it a bit darker. You see, it will look like that. So it's all systems go on the Dow. That's bullish. 1 hour chart, still in a golden cross situation. We don't have a 382. The market is above the 127. Expected to move to the 2.618. What we're seeing here today is just a bit of a retracement. You'll most probably see the market being bought up on dips. So that's bullish on the Dow. I'll keep that as a yes. The S&P, S&P. That's the S&P. Up Fibonacci AB boundary. So what happened here is we had the up AB, then the market retraced to give us the C at the 382, and then moved up to the D extension at 62.60. We now hit that. So now I'm calling it neutral. I'm not saying we need to sell here. It's likely going to go much higher. But from a timing perspective, I need to wait for a fractal high. And guess what? We have a fractal. So it hit the D extension. I see now that there's a fractal here. Look at that. But I need 2 candlesticks to the right, 2 closed candlesticks. So we need to wait for the current daily candlestick to close, because if that one closes, then I can draw a new up Fibonacci AB boundary, and then it's most probably going to be all systems go again. Okay, so that's the S&P. That's a pass for now. And with the RSI being overbought, and we hit that Fibonacci D extension, it's a good idea to wait, because we may be due for a bit of a retracement. Let's have a look at this one tomorrow again and update that. The NASDAQ, what do we have from the NASDAQ? Okay, bullish crown above the 45, period exponential moving average. Up Fibonacci AB boundary, retracement to the 618. We're heading up to the 1.618. Most of the indicators are bullish. It's just the RSI that's still overbought. If it crosses its own moving average, then we may be due for a bit of a retracement. This is almost like a continuation, bullish crown. We could come back for the right tip before we go up to 27,000, because that's the ultimate. It's 27,000. That's where the NASDAQ is heading before we could see a meaningful retracement. So that's bullish at this point. And let's see what we have on the 1 hour. Up AB boundary, no 382, moved above the 127. That means we're heading up to the 2.618. It's still bullish. NASDAQ is still bullish. We're heading up to 23,500. Unless there's a dead cross on the 1 hour, which is not apparent at this point. So all systems go, NASDAQ, Dow Jones, still bullish. And you can apply the same thing to whatever stock you want to trade. NVIDIA, Tesla, whatever. Okay, next one and last one is going to be Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a benchmark. And I did say in my note last week that Bitcoin finally breached the daily Fib 127 at 108,000. So expect Bitcoin now to move to 1,500, which is the Fibonacci 2.618. So if we go and open up Bitcoin here, that's it. Focus on the up Fibonacci AB boundary. There is no 382, but the market's broken the 127 extension. Look at this. It's broken that. We're still above it. And maybe it's coming back to just test the backside of their broken resistance, which is now support. But as long as it is above the 127 extension, which is 108,000, expect this one to move up to 181,500. So I like to use Bitcoin as a benchmark, because as long as it remains above 108, we'll see persistent irrational exuberance with a stock market that will just continue moving up, and all other risky assets will be moving up, such as Bitcoin as well. Okay, so that's the verdict today. Risk on, yen weakness, and we've got 2 currency pairs that are tradable. It is the NZD yen Excuse me, it is the Aussie yen and the Canadian yen. All right. Remember, in my insight sheet, click on the link, my trading view link. It will open up these charts for you. We'll get all my indicators. Just double click on the chart to open it up. Okay. And you'll be able to follow all my analysis. So thank you everybody for joining me in today's session. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and all the best. All the best. I hope you make a lot of pips today. This is your friend from Portugal, Tian Kriek. Cheers.